India is a deeply diverse country that can't be defined by one culture or ideology. This is apparent in almost all aspects of life there. You could hear 10 different native languages spoken on one city street. A place of worship could be dedicated to a number of major religions, notably Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism. In some states, eating beef could land you in prison. In others, it's a totally normal part of life. And to top it all off, it's basically impossible for everyone in such a diverse country to reach a consensus on anything. It's no wonder then that India was one of the few World War II era nations that fought for both sides. Though India was under the British Raj at the time, and although many Indians volunteered to fight for the Allies, 2 whole armies of Indian soldiers fought for the Axis during the war. In this video, we're going to explore how it was possible for India to bat for both teams during the Second World War and why this happened. At the outset of World War II, India was already fighting to separate itself from the British Empire. British rule had never been popular in India. Among other things, the Brits stole vital Indian resources, reinforced harmful caste systems, and placed themselves at the top of these systems. Resentment and hate toward the British were at an all-time high by the late 1930s, which proved to be rather inconvenient for the British as the war kicked off. Britain needed as many soldiers as it could get, but conscripting Indian men simply wasn't an option when many Indians were busy fighting to end the British Raj. Participation in the war effort had to be voluntary. However, volunteering to fight for their oppressors wasn't exactly the most enticing offer, so the British had to sweeten the pot, which they did by giving the soldiers a wage and consistent meals. The bare minimum, really. Some wanted to fight because they were loyal to the British, and some genuinely believed in the cause, but the majority of Indian men volunteered because they'd get 3 meals a day and a steady income. Since many of the volunteers were previously starving, the British military relaxed many of its rules on underweight and anemic soldiers. Additionally, for the first time in 200 years of British rule, the military allowed Indian men to become officers, granting them a much higher social rank than they ever would have achieved otherwise. At the beginning of the war, the Indian army consisted of some 200,000 troops, but by the end, that number had swelled to 2.5 million, making for the largest volunteer force in history. Overall, Indian soldiers were well trained and highly skilled, especially the ones who fought in the Waziristan campaign in the late 1930s. To put it in perspective, 15% of all soldiers who received the Victoria Cross, Britain's highest military honour, were Indian or Nepalese. While they were originally meant to stay in India and defend the country against the Axis, the British ended up sending Indian troops to almost all corners of the war. Notably, they fought in North and East Africa, Persia, Syria, Hong Kong, Malaya, Singapore, France, Italy, Greece, and Burma. It was during this latter campaign, in Burma, that the Indian army staved off a Japanese invasion of India. But not every Indian soldier fought for the Allies. Though the British were highly successful in getting Indians to fight and die for the crown, not every Indian volunteer remained loyal throughout the war. One man, Subhash Chandra Bose, a member of the Indian Congress and one of Mahatma Gandhi's peers, had a vision of creating an army of Indians that would kick out the British once and for all. The only catch was that he believed he had to align himself with the Axis to achieve this. In April 1941, Bose fled to Berlin after escaping house arrest in India. In Berlin, he met with the German High Command, including Hitler himself, to propose his plan. Basically, he wanted to form an army out of Indian soldiers presently held in German and Italian POW camps. Seeing this as a great opportunity to bolster anti-British propaganda, Hitler agreed under the condition that Bose's army would operate under German command. Bose said yes, and his army, known as the Tiger Legion, was born. In total, he managed to recruit 3,000 Indian POWs. These men were highly motivated soldiers who were excited to regain control of their country. Bose's plan was to train his army while Germany crushed the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa. Once the Soviets were defeated, the Tiger Legion would be able to travel through the USSR to India, where it would begin military operations against the British. But before the Tiger Legion could finish its training, Operation Barbarossa fell apart. As such, Bose left for Japan to try his luck again in Asia, leaving the Tiger Legion to do whatever the Germans wanted, including fortifying beaches in the Netherlands and suppressing resistance fighters in France. The Indians didn't believe in the Axis cause at all, but now they were forced to work and fight for the Axis. By the end of the war, the Tiger Legion had seen relatively little action and had done nothing to advance India's fight for independence. When Bose left Germany, it was to take command of another Indian army working with the Japanese. The Indian Army, or INA, had recently collapsed and was being rebuilt to keep the dream of independence alive. Founded in September 1942 by Indian revolutionary Rash Behari Bose, who was of no relation to the other Bose, the INA was initially made up of Indian POWs that had been captured by the Japanese during campaigns in Malaya and Singapore. When offered the opportunity to defect from the British Army, fight for Indian independence, and get out of those dreaded Japanese POW camps, 40,000 of the prisoners took it. Unfortunately, the first INA held together for only a few months. In short, this was because the INA leaders disagreed with the Japanese about the INA's role in the war. The Japanese wanted the INA at their beck and call, but the INA leaders only wanted their soldiers to fight in operations that directly correlated to the liberation of India. These disagreements resulted in the disbandment of the INA, and many of its soldiers were thrown back into POW camps. The Japanese would only agree to reinstate the INA if Subhash Chandra Bose became its leader. Chandra Bose accepted the position and arrived in Tokyo in 1943 after an 18-week submarine journey. He quickly assumed control of the INA and established the Japanese-supported provisional government of Free India. Bose rallied the troops with impassioned speeches declaring, "Give me blood, I will give you freedom." The number of soldiers who volunteered for the second INA grew even more to over 50,000. While the first INA didn't want to play the Japanese army's games, the second one was into it. The second INA fought side by side with the Imperial Japanese Army and continuously encouraged more Indian soldiers to defect from the British Army when they came face to face in battle. The INA fought a number of bloody operations, including the Battle of Imphal, the Battle of Poku, and the Battle of Mandalay. Despite having some success on the battlefield, such as preventing the famed British General Sir Frank Walter Mercivet's 7th Indian Division from crossing the Irrawaddy River to further the Allied invasion of Burma. Ultimately though, the Allies crushed the INA and their Japanese comrades in the 1944 to 1945 Burma campaign, forcing the surviving Indians and Japanese to completely withdraw. With the Allies right on their heels, as many as 14,000 INA soldiers were captured by the British. After they were repatriated to India, these INA soldiers were imprisoned for treason alongside captured Tiger Legion soldiers. In the eyes of the British, they needed to make an example of these men. Despite this, the Indian people rallied behind the soldiers because they regarded them as heroes who fought for India's freedom. The support of the INA and Tiger Legion was so strong because it was post-World War II when the Indian independence movement was in full swing. This put the British under a massive amount of public pressure. As such, they freed the Tiger Legion and the INA that year, dropping all charges of treason. After that, the Indians who fought with the Axis rejoined regular Indian society alongside those who had fought with the Allies. Both continued to fight for Indian freedom, which was achieved in August 1947. Bose, on the other hand, never got to see an independent India, reportedly perishing in a plane crash in 1945. To this day, Bose, the Tiger Legion, and the INA are largely regarded as heroes in India. While these men's decision to join the Axis remains controversial, the resounding opinion is that they collaborated with the Axis in uniform only. They were never truly Nazis or imperialists. It was only ever a means to an end. Now, all that many Indians really want is for India's efforts in World War II, regardless of allegiances, to be recognized on the world stage. But what do you think? Was joining the Axis a necessary evil? Should the men of the Tiger Legion and INA have been punished, or was the decision to release them the right one? And if you're from India, what's your opinion on the Tiger Legion and the INA? Please let us know in the comment section below, because I'm sure these opinions are going to be very interesting to read. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new.